It was the kind of wedding you see in movies. A warm breeze moved through the vineyard, the lights hung above the tables twinkled like stars, and soft music played in the background. My brother stood under a white floral arch, beaming while our family and friends clapped and cheered. My parents had spent nearly $30,000 on it, and honestly, every single cent showed. From the polished wooden chairs to the imported wine, to the live DJ playing exactly the right songs at exactly the right moments, it was perfect. A photographer floated around, capturing every smile, every tear, every loving glance. My mom looked so proud that day. She wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and she kept telling everyone, "Nothing is too much for our son. He only gets married once, right?" And everyone agreed. Even relatives I hadn't seen in years flew in from different parts of the world. Uncle Felix came all the way from Germany. I hadn't even known he had a passport, but there he was, grinning, holding a champagne glass. My cousins were dressed to the nines, and people kept whispering, "This is the wedding of the year." I heard that phrase over and over again. Wedding of the year. Me. I wasn't the bride, but I was everywhere, doing everything. I helped with decorations, stayed up till 2 in the morning tying ribbons to chairs and checking seating charts. I was the one who made sure the custom invitations were mailed on time, that the flower girl had her shoes, that the DJ had the playlist ready. I never complained, not once. I was happy to help. Genuinely. Because seeing my brother smile like that, watching my parents glow with joy, it gave me a feeling of purpose. I felt useful, like I was a piece of something big and beautiful. People kept coming up to me saying, "You've done so much. You're the glue holding this day together." I'd just smile and say, "Well, he's my brother." And I meant it. I wasn't keeping score. I didn't feel jealous. Not then. I was proud. But somewhere inside me, maybe a little deeper than I wanted to admit, I did wonder. I wondered if, someday when it was my turn, they would go all out like this for me too. Maybe not $30,000, but something meaningful. Something beautiful. A day that made me feel just as loved, just as important. I didn't need a vineyard or imported wine. I just wanted that look in my mom's eyes, that pride in my dad's voice when he told everyone, "That's my daughter." I wanted to feel like I mattered just as much. That night, after the party ended and everyone had gone home, I stayed back to help clean up. My heels were killing me, my dress was wrinkled, and I had a headache from the music. But I kept stacking chairs, picking up empty glasses, folding tablecloths. When I finally sat down to rest, I looked at the dance floor, now empty, and I told myself, one day it'll be me up there. And they'll cheer for me too. I had no idea that day would come sooner than expected. But I also had no idea just how different it would be. 1 year later, my life took a soft, beautiful turn. I got engaged to Thomas, a man who wasn't flashy or loud, but who had the gentlest heart I'd ever known. He wasn't rich. He didn't come with grand gestures or expensive rings. But he listened to me. He respected me. And more than anything, he made me feel safe, seen, and deeply loved. It wasn't the kind of love you shout from rooftops. It was quiet, like morning light through a window. And it was exactly what I had always hoped for. When he asked me to marry him, it was just the two of us in our little kitchen. No cameras, no crowds. He slid a modest ring onto my finger, one he had saved up for over several months. My hands were shaking, but my heart was steady. I said yes without a second thought. I didn't need a vineyard or imported wine. I just needed him. And I knew that whatever kind of wedding we could afford, it would be full of love. We talked about keeping things simple. Maybe a small ceremony in a garden. A potluck dinner with close friends and family. Some fairy lights, homemade desserts, and music from a speaker we already owned. Sounded like a dream to me. Not grand but real. I could already imagine the laughter, the hugs, the warmth of everyone gathered. Not because of a $30,000 budget, but because they loved us. I picked up the phone and called my parents. I told them the date we'd picked. I was excited, almost giddy, thinking they'd ask about the details or maybe say how happy they were for me. But the line went quiet. After a moment, my dad said, "Don't expect us to go broke again." I was stunned. Not angry, just quiet. My mom added, "We did the big wedding already. For your brother. Don't start thinking we're going to throw money around twice." Her tone was sharp, almost irritated, like I'd asked them for a favor I didn't deserve. I didn't know what to say at first. My throat tightened. My hands, still holding the phone, started to sweat. I hadn't asked them for money. I wasn't expecting anything grand. All I wanted was for them to be there. To show up. To smile. To maybe take a photo with me the way they did with my brother under that white floral arch. I swallowed and forced a smile even though they couldn't see it. "It's okay," I said softly. "Just having you both there would be more than enough." There was no warmth in their response. Just a half-hearted "we'll see" before they changed the subject to something else entirely. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a while. My engagement was quiet. My ring was simple. My wedding would be small. But my heart was full. And I told myself that would be enough. I tried to believe it. I really did. On the day of my wedding, I stood in front of the mirror wearing a simple white dress I had bought for myself. It wasn't designer and it didn't have lace or a long train. But it fit me well and I felt beautiful in it. I had curled my hair that morning, put on light makeup and even wore a pair of earrings my grandmother had given me years ago. Thomas had already gone ahead to the house and I took a deep breath before leaving. I told myself this was going to be our day, simple, small but meaningful. When I arrived at my parents' backyard, my heart sank a little. There was a barbecue grill off to one side with smoke lazily drifting upward. A stack of paper plates sat next to a fold-out table covered with a plastic tablecloth. The chairs were mismatched, some metal, some plastic, like they had been pulled from the garage last minute. And right above the patio door was a banner that said, "Congrats," in gold letters. The edges were already curling in the breeze, and it looked like it had come straight from the dollar store. It barely even said our names. I looked around for my mother. She was sitting under the patio umbrella, scrolling on her phone with her sunglasses still on, even though it was cloudy. She didn't look up when I walked in. My father was leaning on the fence, quietly talking to one of his cousins. He gave me a nod, not even a smile, before returning to his conversation. I tried not to let it show, but my chest was tightening. I had imagined maybe a small table with flowers. Maybe a few lights or soft music playing. But there was nothing. No music. No setup for vows. No small speech or toast. Just the smell of grilled hot dogs and the sound of people casually chatting, like it was any other Sunday afternoon. I spotted Thomas, who smiled and came over to take my hand. He looked handsome in his dress shirt and slacks, clothes he'd pressed himself the night before. His smile grounded me a little. We exchanged our vows quietly under the old oak tree in the backyard. Just the two of us speaking words we had written by hand. No microphone. No clapping. Just our voices and a few distracted guests who paused their conversations long enough to look over and say, "Oh, they're doing it now." There was no first dance. No music played at all, actually. At one point, I heard a car stereo down the street louder than the sounds of my own wedding. A few people clapped after we kissed. Someone snapped a photo on their phone. Then it was back to burgers and soda cans. No cake cutting, no bouquet toss, no memories I had dreamed of since I was a child. As I sat on one of the plastic chairs with a paper plate of grilled chicken on my lap, I looked around and realized something painful. I didn't feel like a bride. I felt like a guest at someone else's family picnic. I watched my mom still scrolling, my dad now helping flip burgers, and people laughing about topics that had nothing to do with Thomas and me. It was like we were just the excuse to have a cookout. I smiled when people looked my way, nodded when someone offered congratulations, and even posed for a few pictures. But inside I felt hollow. Not because the wedding was small, but because it felt like no one else believed this day mattered at all. After most of the guests had left, the backyard looked even more lifeless. A few crumpled napkins rolled in the wind, the grill had gone cold, and the cheap banner was barely hanging on by one corner. I stood there for a while watching Thomas talk to his friend, still smiling, still hopeful. He had no idea what I was feeling, and I didn't want to ruin his happiness. Not yet. I walked over to my dad, who was tossing used paper plates into a trash bag, moving slowly like it was just another chore. I cleared my throat softly and asked, "Dad, why didn't you do something a little more special? Just a little effort. You did so much for Michael." He didn't look at me right away. He tied up the trash bag, tossed it to the side, and then finally met my eyes. His voice was calm. No anger, no hesitation. Just flat. "You're a girl," he said. "This isn't your real home anyway." The words hit harder than I ever imagined. Not loud. Not cruel. But final, like a door closing slowly behind me. I felt something crack deep inside. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was everything I had ignored, brushed off, or forgiven over the years. The times I was asked to stay quiet, to step aside, to make room. The moments when my achievements were met with a polite nod, while my brother's smallest success got cheers and claps. The way I was expected to be helpful, graceful, silent, and never expect anything in return. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply turned around and began picking up the cups and folding chairs like nothing had happened. I smiled at the neighbor as she waved goodbye. I thanked my aunt for coming. I hugged a cousin who told me she loved my dress. Then I helped take the trash to the bin, washed my hands in the kitchen sink, and stepped inside the bathroom to look at myself in the mirror. I looked exactly the same, hair still curled, lipstick slightly faded. But inside everything had changed. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I didn't make a scene. I just walked back to the bedroom, packed my small bag quietly, and slipped out the side gate while no one was looking. No goodbyes. Just the sound of my shoes crunching the gravel as I walked away. I walked into the night not really knowing where I was going. The air was cooler than I expected, but I didn't care. I didn't care about anything. I just needed to get away. Away from the house, away from the people who had so easily forgotten me. Away from the hollow celebration that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I didn't tell Thomas. I didn't leave a note or send a text. I didn't explain. I just walked out the door, closing it softly behind me. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I couldn't breathe in that space anymore. My chest felt tight with everything I had held inside for so long. The disappointments, the years of being overlooked, the feelings that had slowly piled up, ignored, forgotten. I found a hotel just down the road. It wasn't much. A small, inexpensive place with peeling wallpaper and a flickering light in the hallway. But it didn't matter. I didn't need luxury. I needed silence. I needed solitude. I paid for the room with my own money, didn't use my credit card, didn't give them a chance to track me. The key was heavy in my hand, a reminder that I didn't need anyone else to make decisions for me. Not anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence was deafening. I tried to breathe slowly to calm my racing thoughts, but my mind wouldn't stop. All I could think about were the years I had spent trying to please them, trying to show my family that I was enough, that I deserved a little attention, a little love. I had spent so many years pouring my heart into them, always hoping that one day they would see me, appreciate me, but it was always for nothing. And then I realized I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just done. Done with the expectation that I should give everything and receive nothing in return. Done with the years of unspoken rules, of being invisible, of waiting for love that never came. I wasn't lost. I wasn't broken. I was just done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. It wasn't relief, but something quieter, something more powerful. A decision had been made. A door had closed. I closed my eyes and let the silence fill me. It was time to move on. Around 3 a.m., the stillness of the hotel room was broken by the soft buzz of my phone. The bright light of the screen illuminated my tired face, and I glanced at the message. It was from my uncle. "Where are you? Your husband is searching everywhere. Your dad's crying." I stared at the words for a moment. It was almost surreal. This image of my father crying, of Thomas searching for me in the dark, desperately trying to figure out where I had gone. The thought should have made me feel something. Guilt. Regret. Maybe even concern. But I didn't feel any of those things. I felt nothing. Just a deep, unsettling silence inside me. The emotional storm that had been building up for years had finally settled into a cold calm. The hurt, the disappointment, the anger. It was all still there, but it no longer held power over me. My heart was numb and my mind was clear. I wasn't tangled in the emotions that once used to pull me in, making me want to fix things, to apologize, to explain myself. I didn't need to explain anymore. I picked up the phone, my fingers steady as I typed my response. "Tell him I'm safe. But I won't be coming back tonight." It felt strangely empowering to send that message. Like I was reclaiming a part of myself that I had given away for far too long. The version of me that had constantly begged for love, for recognition, for approval. The version that always put others' feelings before my own. That version of me was now slipping away. I leaned back against the bed, staring at the ceiling again, my phone now resting silently in my hand. For the first time in years I felt free. Free from the expectations that had weighed me down. Free from the guilt I had carried. thinking I was somehow responsible for fixing things that weren't my fault to begin with. That was the moment I emotionally detached. The moment I realized that I didn't need to keep chasing after people who had shown me time and time again that they would never give me what I needed. I was done trying to prove myself, to seek love that wasn't meant for me. I had nothing left to prove. And that thought somehow felt like the most liberating thing I had ever felt. I found a job 2 towns away, a quiet little office where the work wasn't too demanding, but it kept me busy enough to keep my mind off everything I had left behind. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. I didn't have to pretend to be something I wasn't just to fit in. After a few weeks of searching, I found a small apartment on the 2nd floor of an old building. It wasn't anything special. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a view of the street from the small balcony. But it was a space that was entirely my own. A space where no one could tell me what to do, where I didn't have to feel less than, where I could simply exist without being judged. Thomas stood by me through all of it. His quiet strength, his unwavering support, was a comfort I hadn't known I needed. He didn't question my decision to leave, didn't try to convince me to go back to my family. He just understood. He was there with me as I navigated this new chapter of my life. He helped me move my things into the apartment, and together we made it a home. We didn't need anything fancy. A couple of old chairs, a second-hand couch, some pictures of us, and a small plant in the corner. We filled the space with love, peace, and the kind of quiet that I hadn't realized I craved until now. There was no tension in the air, no expectations hanging over me. There were no demands or guilt trips. Just the gentle hum of our life together. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I didn't invite my parents over. They never asked to come, and I didn't miss them. I didn't need their approval anymore. I wasn't waiting for their love or attention. I had found something that was far more valuable: self-respect. The strength to live my life on my own terms. One day my brother came by. It had been a few months since I left, and I hadn't heard much from him or anyone else. When he arrived, he looked a little uncomfortable, like he wasn't sure how to act around me now. We sat down in the small living room and he made some small talk, asking how I was settling in. He then brought up my dad, and that's when he said it. "Dad misses you," he said quietly, looking at me with those eyes that were so much like our father's. I didn't know how to respond right away. Part of me wanted to ask him why he hadn't come to visit or why they hadn't tried harder to reach out. But I just sat there, the weight of everything I had experienced crashing over me for a moment. Finally, I looked him in the eye and said, "I'm not sure I miss them." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but they were true. The years of trying to earn their love, the constant disappointment, the feeling of being invisible, it had all built up to this moment. I had been forced to step away from them to protect myself, and in doing so I realized I no longer needed their validation. I had found my own peace in this little apartment, with the man who loved me without conditions, and for the first time that was enough. Months passed. The days bled into each other, and life with Thomas felt more like a dream than reality. I had found a rhythm in this new chapter of my life, and it was peaceful. My heart had begun to heal little by little. I had stopped waking up with that pit in my stomach, that constant ache from the neglect and the years of trying to earn a love that never came. I was learning to love myself again, learning that I didn't need anyone's approval to be whole. Then one day a letter arrived in my mailbox. It wasn't anything special at first glance. Just an envelope, plain and simple, with no return address. But something in my chest tightened when I saw it. I couldn't explain why, but I knew. I knew it was from my father. I hesitated for a moment, standing in the doorway of the apartment, holding the envelope in my hands. My pulse quickened. The weight of the past few months, the quiet silence that had stretched between us, all came rushing back. I wasn't sure what to expect from this letter, but a part of me feared that it was another attempt to pull me back into their world. I opened it slowly, as if the paper might somehow shatter my resolve if I moved too quickly. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was my father's. I could almost hear his voice in my head as I read the words. "You were always the strong one. I'm sorry we never gave you your moment. You deserved it more than anyone. I just didn't know how to be a father to a daughter." I felt the sting of tears well up in my eyes as the words hit me harder than I expected. I had spent so many years waiting for this. Waiting for an apology. Waiting for some acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible to them. That they had seen my sacrifices, my love, my pain. But the moment I read those words, something inside me shifted. It was bittersweet, this apology. I had imagined this moment for so long, but now that it had come, it felt hollow. It wasn't the reassurance I needed. It wasn't the closure I had hoped for. It was just too little too late. I thought about calling him, telling him that I had read the letter, that I appreciated his apology. But as I sat there staring at the letter in my hands, I realized something. Some apologies come too late. No matter how much we wish for them, no matter how long we wait for that moment of redemption, sometimes it just doesn't come when we need it the most. And maybe that's part of the healing process. Learning that we don't always get the closure we crave. Learning that we don't have to wait for someone else to fix what's broken inside us. We have to do it ourselves. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the drawer next to my bed. I didn't call him. I didn't need to. I had already found my peace. The apology had been nice, but it wasn't the thing that would mend my past. That work was mine to do. And with Thomas by my side, I was finally whole again.